Whatever you do in life, you give every last inch, okay?
Best family win.
Reckoning Day has arrived. The final of Ireland's fittest on RTE1 and RTE Player.
At Panadol, we understand how pain can feel. Gaining relief helps us to find the joy in those everyday moments. Panadol, beat pain with strength.
Breastfeeding provides your baby with the best start in life. Inspired by 40 years of breast milk research, Optimil Follow-On Milk contains vitamin D to help support their immune system. If you choose to move on, trust Ireland's #1 brand for follow-on milks. And now, introducing new Optimal Organic Follow-On Milk.
When it comes to your health and well-being, we believe you've waited long enough. Our Leia Health and Wellbeing clinics provide urgent care for minor illnesses and injuries within an hour of arrival, 365 days a year. We don't just want to help you get well, we want to keep you that way. That's why our clinics also provide cardiac screening and consultations with a health coach. Just another way Leia Healthcare looks after its members. Leia Healthcare, looking after you always.
Discover different at the Virgin Media Dublin International Film Festival. For tickets, visit diff.ie.
At Tesco, we know how important saving is to you. That's why we've created Value with You in mind. We've brought together everyday favourites, and to make shopping great value even easier, we've put a red bubble beside each and every one. For great value this dinner time, shop the red bubble ingredients for spaghetti bolognese and serve a family of 4 for less than €5. Tesco. Every little helps.
At AIB, we've always backed your belief with our competitive fixed rates. Which is why, whether you're looking to move, buy your first home, or switch your mortgage to AIB, we'll back you. And we're also offering you our lowest rates for higher energy rated homes. Talk to our mortgage team about our competitive fixed rates or apply online at aib.ie. AIB, we back belief.
The Lotto jackpot is an estimated €4.5 million. The National Lottery. It could be you.
Welcome back. The main news this evening. Ulster Bank is to withdraw from Ireland after 160 years operating in the market. Its parent company, NatWest, has confirmed. Concerns have been expressed at the loss of the country's third largest bank, which will wind down its operations on a phased basis over the coming years. The Taoiseach has said that nothing is set in stone when it comes to the easing of Level 5 restrictions, but that the Cabinet will examine the issue next week. Under plans being considered by government, schools and childcare programmes will reopen on a phased basis next month, but construction and other services will remain closed. The G7 group of wealthier countries has pledged €7.5 billion to the World Health Organization's programme to ensure developing nations get adequate supplies of COVID-19 vaccines. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said the pandemic will not end until the whole world has been vaccinated.
Now returning to that decision by Ulster Bank to pull out of Ireland, and we're joined from the Dáil studio by the Minister for Finance, Paschal Donohoe. Minister, thanks for joining us on 6-1 this evening. Ulster Bank is leaving the market because it says it just can't make money here. Why is that?
Well, there's many reasons for it. It's up to them to explain their view regarding why they need to leave. But the main issues that they have highlighted is that for the amount of money they had located within our country, the return they were getting for that money was a lot less than the return they can get elsewhere. And obviously this was in the context of the bank losing money over a period of time in Ireland as well. But the key reason is not being able to get the kind of return from money in Ireland that they can get in other countries.
Now, you had meetings this morning with the Chief Executive, Jane Howard, and also with the employee representatives. What sense did you get of how many of the 2,800 jobs can be saved?
It really is too early to be able to put a figure on that. What is very potentially positive about the announcement today in what is a very, very difficult day is the acknowledgement of Ulster Bank of three particular things. The first one is that they want to engage with what they refer to as strategic bank counterparties. In other words, banks that will provide an array of retail services within Ireland. The second thing that is potentially positive is they indicated negotiations are underway with Allied Irish Bank and Permanent TSB. And the third thing is that on a number of occasions they did indicate that they did want to preserve as much jobs and as many jobs as they can. So this is a really difficult, it's a really hard day for all those who work for Ulster Bank. It's a really concerning day for all those who bank with them or who have loans with them and so on. But it's really critical to emphasise the degree of protection that is there for, in particular, loan holders with Ulster Bank, and that even in this day, there is the possibility of progress with other banks.
And on those negotiations with AIB and Permanent TSB, the state is a majority shareholder in both of those institutions. So would any deal involve the taxpayer having to underwrite that?
It is, at this point, too early to be able to give you an answer to that question. And the reason for that is there's negotiations that are underway to varying degrees between one bank, which is NatWest, and two other banks, an AIB and PTSB, that the state does indeed have a shareholding in. And they are negotiations that are being led by independent boards and banks to me. Even though we do have a shareholding in them, they're commercially independent. They have obligations to their own staff, to their own customers. And those negotiations have to conclude, if they can, and then be presented to the main shareholder, which in both cases is the Irish taxpayer. And it's really only at that point that I can make a recommendation to government regarding how we respond to those transactions, and if indeed there's a need for us to play any role in them. But the negotiations have to get underway, then they have to conclude. If they conclude, then we have to evaluate them. So there's so many bridges to cross, Sharon, before we even get to considering a question like that.
One of the big concerns that mortgage holders with Ulster Bank would have is that their mortgages may be sold to so-called vulture funds. I mean, what can you say to them about that?
Well, I can say two things. The first one is that Ulster Bank have given a really clear indication today, and this has been reaffirmed by NatWest, regarding who their priority bidders are, for want of a better phrase, for the parts of the businesses that they're going to sell. And they have emphasised banks, and they have emphasised banks that provide a variety of services within the Irish market. There's a really clear preference there, and that is why we have to let those negotiations play. But secondly, for mortgage holders whose loans have been sold, for mortgage holders whose loans might be sold in the future, the protections they have in the mortgage, the original mortgage that they took out, travel with them to the new owner. And we've really strong legislation in place here in Ireland to ensure that the rights of mortgage holders are protected if their mortgage contract is sold.
And Minister, if I could just ask you about COVID-19 restrictions before our time is up. The Taoiseach said last night that we would be looking at severe restrictions into April, and then he said today that that's not set in stone. Does the government sufficiently understand that the public is on tenterhooks awaiting these official announcements?
The government absolutely understands, and I absolutely understand, the level of anxiety and worry in our country. We see it every day. I get it every day in the contact I have with businesses. I see it in the eyes of the few people we can still meet in the streets. I see it in the emails and the contact that I get in every hour. I see it in all the small and medium-sized businesses that contact me every day, worried about their future. So we absolutely understand the anxiety and tension that is there. But what we are trying to do is respond back to a disease that even now is still changing. What the Taoiseach said last night is really very consistent with what he has said in the past and what the government has said, which is that there is going to be very gradual easing of these restrictions. But in the gradual easing of those restrictions, we're going to be getting more people vaccinated. There's every prospect that we'll be able to make progress with our schools, and our hospitals might be better able to cope and will be better able to cope, not only with the impact of COVID, but with all of the other serious health conditions that are there. So yes, we absolutely recognise the tension and anxiety that is there. And as we conclude on what are difficult decisions, we will communicate them as clearly and as quickly as we can to the country.
All right, Minister Paschal Donohoe, thanks for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
The family of a 73-year-old woman who is gravely ill with cervical cancer has said they fear she will not live to see her High Court case resolved if mediation fails to achieve a settlement. Joan Lucy's legal team had previously pleaded in court twice for mediation to begin, as lawyers described her as being on her deathbed. A commitment was given in court this morning to begin mediation next week. Our legal affairs correspondent Orla O'Donnell has more on this. Orla, what can you tell us?
Yes, David, Joan Lucy is a retired nurse from County Kerry, and her claim against the HSE and two laboratories relates to a number of smear tests in 2011 which were reported as negative. She was diagnosed with cervical cancer in 2019. Now, her claim against the HSE and two laboratories is denied by the defendants. The case was due for hearing in the next week. However, her lawyers told the court yesterday that she was gravely ill, and as you say there, that she was on her deathbed, and they had been pleading with the HSE to enter direct mediation. The HSE had said it couldn't do this because of a legal issue that had to be resolved, first of all. Now, this morning in the High Court, the court heard that an agreement had been reached for mediation to begin next Tuesday. Mrs. Lucy's family issued a statement this evening saying they welcomed this, but they say that if that mediation fails and the case then has to go to hearing, they are afraid that their mother won't live long enough to see the conclusion of the case. They say it's regrettable that it took so many court applications to get to this point. They say this has had an adverse effect on their mother, and they fear that she will pass away before the case concludes, and that a large part of her legal claim will pass away at the same time. They also say that they now have to start preparing to give evidence in the High Court in case those mediation talks fail, when they should be spending time with their mother in her final days. In relation to this case, the State Claims Agency has said that it can't comment on the particulars. It says that it tries to resolve all such cases as sensitively as possible and as quickly as possible, and that it exhorts all parties in such cases to seek mediation as quickly as possible. David.
OK, Orla, thank you indeed for that.
NASA's Perseverance rover has sent back the first pictures from Mars after a successful touchdown. The rover will be used to search for signs of ancient life on the red planet. The historic landing came after a 7-month journey into space.
The first images from the Martian surface beamed back to Earth from the landing site of the NASA rover Perseverance, showing the rover's shadow on the surface of the Jezero crater.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on its...
Cheers erupted from the NASA control room in California as news of the safe landing reached Earth. The robotic vehicle sailed through space for nearly 7 months, covering 472 million kilometres, before piercing the Martian atmosphere at 19,000 kilometres an hour, 16 times the speed of sound.
It's also part of our bigger exploration plans, right? Which involve really understanding Mars and the evolution of Mars and whether there was life, ancient life, but also preparing for eventual human missions to Mars.
The rover, affectionately called Percy by NASA scientists, is the most sophisticated ever built by the space agency. Percy is also the heaviest rover NASA has ever attempted to land, weighing in at over a metric ton. It will search for evidence of ancient life and study Mars's climate and geology. Samples will be collected and eventually returned to Earth by the 2030s. Scientists also hope to fly a helicopter as part of the mission and capture the first recordings of sound from Mars. NASA hopes the pristine samples will answer some monumental questions, including whether life might have once existed beyond Earth. Dimitri O'Donnell, RTE News.
This weekend marks the 100th anniversary of one of the worst defeats for the IRA during the War of Independence. Almost the entire flying column in East Cork was surrounded by troops and RIC auxiliaries at a farmhouse near Middleton. By the end of the ensuing battle, 12 IRA men were dead and 8 others captured, 2 of whom were later executed.
If Kilmichael had been the IRA's most successful operation during the War of Independence, then what happened at Clonmult, in rising, isolated pasture land near Middleton, was surely its worst defeat. Poor leadership and a degree of carelessness on the part of the IRA group led troops to a flying column headquarters at this abandoned farmhouse. More than 20 young men, aged about 17 to 30, were quickly surrounded and trapped. 2 of them outside the house were killed immediately in a firefight. The narrative of some of the major episodes of the War of Independence has become clouded in controversy as the years go on. But the essence of what happened here in Clonmult is generally agreed upon.
Those inside the house were stuck with an appalling dilemma. If they tried to escape, then they were not likely to get very far. If they remained in position, of course, they were sitting ducks.
Reinforcements from the RIC Auxiliary Division brought a powerful weapon with which to force an IRA surrender: petrol. The farmhouse had a thatched roof and there was only one exit, the front door.
So they came out, 12 of them. They were lined up against the front of the cowshed, and the auxiliary police opened fire with their revolvers and killed 7 of them. The question then is, why would they kill them? We were only about 12 weeks after the massacre of the auxiliary police at Kilmichael.
But how definitive is the evidence of a straightforward massacre?
On the Republican side, the account was that men were lined up against the wall and the auxiliaries opened fire. And it was only with the intervention of a British officer that all of them were not wiped out. On the British side, the account is that some of the men attempted to escape.
For the families of those who died at Clonmult, the battle remains a reminder of a vicious period in history.
Only 22, only 22. He was from a family of 12, and it had a huge impact on their family. His parents passed away within the 2 years of him being killed. It had an awful, awful effect on them.
Donal Byrne, RTE News, Clonmult, County Cork.
And you can see Donal Byrne's special report on the Battle of Clonmult on Nationwide directly after this programme.
Now, still to come on the programme, catwalk creations. Irish designers play a major role in London's Digital Fashion Week.
And coming up in Friday evening's sports news, another blow to Stephen Kenny as defender John Egan is ruled out of the Republic of Ireland's opening 2 World Cup qualifiers.
After one of the most unique seasons in GAA history,
Limerick are the All-Ireland hurling champions.
It's time to honour the greatest hurlers and footballers of the year in the historic 50th edition of the All-Stars. WC All-Star Awards, Saturday at 6:35 on RTE1 and RTE Player.
Enjoy a freshly prepared €1.50 Mayo chicken, part of the McDonald's Eurosaver menu.
Oh, don't stop after brushing. Brushing your teeth only targets a quarter of your mouth. Listerine targets virtually the whole mouth to help kill 97% of the germs and gives plaque a kick, even below the gum line. Complete the clean with Listerine.
School shoes already. What's next?
I don't know. Well, she's definitely going to be the best student in her class. What if she gets really into sport? Maybe not that into sport. Then there's marriage. That could be a big one. And what if I'm not around? And what if...
I know. Maybe we should concentrate on the shoes.
For 80 years, we've been helping people embrace life's changes. For health, life, pensions and investments, we know Irish Life. We are Irish Life.
ESB Networks, we maintain and build Ireland's power network, connecting us all to a supply of electricity that we can rely on. From shops and hospitals to homes and businesses, we keep the nation humming.
What's that?
It's a way to transform our home.
Transform our home?
Like getting solar panels on the roof so we can cook using the power of the sun.
Sunny side up, was it?
And insulate the house so it's cosier and cheaper to run, keeping the heat in and the drafts out.
Giraffes. Shoot.
Or we can replace our old boiler with a new heat pump that turns